Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Laz Jr. Do me one favor, hit that subscribe button, subscribe to my channel. I would gladly appreciate it. Also, hit the notification bell that'll let you know when I have a new video. And also hit the like button because that helps the algorithm. So we're going to talk about Lia Thomas, the female swimmer. Let's get into it.
Lia Thomas, the elite college athlete who became the first openly transgender woman to win an NCAA swimming title. She's speaking out at her first TV interview with Nightline's Juju Chang. Good morning, Juju.
Good morning to you, George. You know, Lia Thomas says there are two major aspects of her identity, being an elite swimmer and being trans. And yet it's her success as a trans athlete that's landed her smack in the center of a heated culture war over trans rights. And she's breaking her silence for the first time on camera as people try to balance the core values of inclusion versus fairness. She's the swimmer who created shockwaves across the country, 23-year-old Lia Thomas.
Lia Thomas pulling away.
The UPenn swimmer making history in March as the first known transgender athlete to win a Division I national title. But her athletic achievements on the women's swim team igniting fierce debate over fairness in women's sports.
It is just not fair.
When it comes to competition, it's just not a fair fight.
Throughout the controversy, Thomas has largely remained quiet until now.
I knew there would be scrutiny against me if I competed as a woman. I was prepared for that, but I also don't.
You heard what he said. He knew he was going to get backlash, scrutiny, if he competed as a woman. He knows that he's not a woman. He knows that. I'm just saying.
Need anybody's permission to be myself and to do the sport that I love.
Assigned male at birth, Thomas grew up in Austin, Texas, where she says she fell in love with swimming when she was just 4. But as she grew, she says she felt increasingly disconnected to her body.
I didn't feel like I was a boy. I was like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am.
You can't make this
Thomas
stuff up.
earned a spot at her Ivy League dream school, UPenn, on the men's team. But by her sophomore year, she says her gender dysphoria left her depressed and suicidal.
I was barely going to classes. I could really barely get out of bed. And I said, I can't live like this anymore. And I want to be able to do things I enjoy.
Even if it might cost me my swimming career.
Yeah, and that's part of what kept me from transitioning for so long, is I wasn't sure if I could continue swimming and doing the sport that I loved.
Thomas began HRT, hormone replacement therapy, in May of her sophomore year, 2019.
The mental and emotional changes actually happened very quickly. I was feeling a lot better mentally. I was less depressed, and I lost muscle mass, and I became a lot weaker and a lot slower in the water.
After following NCAA guidelines of a year of hormone therapy to change gender categories, Thomas started her senior year on the women's team. But her success in the water was met with outrage leading up to the NCAA championships. Her critics say she jumped in the rankings between the men's and the women's team.
And there are some who look at the data and suggest that you're enjoying a competitive advantage. What do you say to that?
There's a lot of factors that go into a race and how well you do. And the biggest change for me is that I'm happy. And sophomore year, where I had my best times competing with the men, I was miserable. And so having that be lifted is incredibly relieving and allows me to put my all into training, into racing. Trans people don't transition for athletics. We transition to be happy and authentic and our true selves.
Okay, listen. He said that when he was swimming with the men, and he is a man, he didn't feel good and he felt miserable or whatever. Listen, from a man's perspective, a lot of men gonna think like this. You wasn't that good competing in a man's sport because you are a man. You wasn't that good. So you went over to the women's. Like you said, it was gonna get backlash from you competing as a woman. Now you whooping up on the women because you couldn't conquer it over here. so you went over there. That's how a lot of men think about it. Excuse me, look at it. I look at it that way. I do. Let's get back into it.
Transitioning to get an advantage is not something that ever factors into our decisions.
You didn't transition to win more medals.
No.
Thomas quickly became a lightning rod. 16 of her own teammates and some of their parents wrote anonymous letters arguing Thomas posed a threat to women's sports.
The women who signed the letter anonymously said that they absolutely supported your right to transition, but they simply think it's unfair for you to compete against cisgendered women.
You can't go halfway and be like, I support
this woman
trans
cisgender
women and trans people, but only to a certain point. Where if you support trans women as women and they've met all the NCAA requirements, and then I don't know if you can really say something like that. Trans women are not a threat to women's sports.
While the science on transgender athletes is new and evolving, some medical experts say the effects of higher testosterone during male puberty may never be fully erased.
What are the physical aspects that trans women may not be able to roll back with hormone therapy?
Obviously, issues related to body size, airway size, hand size, foot size, perhaps bone density, and so forth. But I think the main thing is just the interactions of exercise training.
That's actually everything. Literally everything what he just said. He said all the advantages. All of them. Because a man is competing in a woman's sport. You can't make this stuff up, man. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And skeletal muscle.
Are you saying that years of hormone therapy cannot put trans women in a place to compete with cisgendered women?
I think that evidence so far would suggest that periods of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years is probably insufficient.
There is this concept of the legacy effects of testosterone, and that can't ever be zero. Should that eliminate or disqualify transgender women?
I'm not a medical expert, but there's a lot of variation among cis female athletes.
You want to be a woman.
There are cis women who are very tall and very muscular and have more testosterone than another cis woman, and should that then also disqualify them?
In January, the NCAA updated its transgender athlete eligibility guidelines, saying each sport's governing body could make their own rules. Later clarifying it wouldn't impose the new rules mid-season, clearing the way for Thomas to compete at the NCAAs.
It was an incredible experience to be able to fulfill that personal goal and be at that meet, as well as...
I had enough. I'm done. This woman, this reporter said cis woman. He said cis woman. What is the cis woman? What does that even mean? What is it? You're making up names for real woman. This woman, how I see it, disrespected herself. A real woman, I've researched this. They don't like being called cis woman. You want to be a trans woman, then you come up with a name for that, and then you want to come up with a name for real woman and call them cis women. That is offensive. It's offensive. Men are supposed to play in men's sports and women are supposed to play in women's sports. That's the way it is. That's the way it's always supposed to be. That is it. Why do we have men and women's bathrooms? We have men and women's bathrooms for a reason. Just because you put on a dress and some makeup and you're a man doesn't give you the right to walk into a women's bathroom. Be considerate of others. It's not always about you. What about everybody else? Huh? A woman shouldn't give her the right because she want to grow a beard and get buffed up to be able to use a man's bathroom. No. It's not always about you. It's not. Excuse me. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's yes. It's the way life works. It's the way God intended it to be. He intended it for it to be two genders. And that's what it is. Two genders in this world. Women and men. Okay? For the most part, yes. There are some people who are born with some defects and stuff like that. Hey, God bless them. They're alive. They're here. Guys, what do you think about this video? Please comment. God bless.